This is the Johnny Cleveland Podcast, all things Cleveland sports, with your host, John Suchan. Well, good afternoon, everybody. If you're watching us live just now, you might have seen me almost drop the mic, but save the day on this home opener for the Cleveland Guardians this afternoon. Wanted to come out here and talk about that home opener briefly and other things happening in the world of sports here in Cleveland. It's a Friday afternoon. I know Rod Bloom and his brother Jeff have a special guest. They had their show scheduled for tonight for the Browns Blitz. I think they're going to be coming on Sunday now. So stay tuned for that this weekend. But in the meantime, hope you're doing something fun. It's a beautiful day here in the Buckeye State down here in Columbus. It's also the kickoff to the Columbus Aviators home opener for the new UFL team here in Columbus. Any of you who live here in Columbus, I have 3 tickets. So if you're watching live, and I'm going to put this out on social media after I get off the show here in about 15 minutes, but if you are interested in going to the Columbus Aviators football game, DM us here at the Fanatical Elves Network or my tag at John Suchan, and I will see about getting those tickets out to you. The game tonight in Columbus is being played at the historic Columbus Crew Stadium at 8 o'clock. So the game's going to be on Fox Sports. You can watch it, but if you'd like to go down, I was just looking at tickets, and it's a good packed house tonight. They're going to fill that stadium up pretty good. So looking forward to that. And if you'd like to go to the game, let me know. Okay. So yeah, the Guardians open up this home opener this afternoon. They had a good good away trip there. They were out there in Seattle and Los Angeles and did some good things, won some games. I know the big kid, the new kid, Chase DeLauder, started off with a bang. Unfortunately, he injured his ankle pretty badly on a foul ball recently. And they put him on the 60-day DL, which is not great news for the kid, but Guardians continue to win. They had a great outing from Gavin Williams. Thank you, Gavin Williams. You're on my Fantasy League baseball team, and you did some great things, brought me lots of points, so thank you for that. He had a good game, a good outing against the Dodgers. Jose Ramirez hit a 2-run shot late in that game to help the Cleveland go on to win, and so now they've got their home opener today. Good luck to them. Should be a lot of fun, festive times down there at the ballpark. You know, I was down there a few weeks ago covering the MAC tournament for the men and the women. And, you know, that there's that tunnel. If you are familiar with Cleveland, you can ride the rapid to downtown, to Terminal Tower, and then take a walk through this tunnel area that they've created. And then you come out of it and you basically enter either the Cavs arena, Rocket Arena, or the baseball park there at Progressive Field. It's really a neat spot. So if you're from out of town or you get a chance to come into Cleveland, I would encourage you to hang out there and see all the festivities down there. The Terminal Tower is just a fantastic place. If you've never been through there as a tourist, you should stop in there. Just a classic old building. Lots of films have been done in Cleveland, and the Terminal Tower has been a part of a lot of those. So classic, distinguished building. Check that out. All right, Cavaliers, they did secure a playoff spot. Thank God, right? I know some of you Cavs fans are very, very concerned about how far will they get in the playoffs. Oh, they're going to lose to the Hawks. Now I think they're the 4th seed. They're lined up to play Atlanta. Now, Atlanta is pretty good. They've won 18 of their last 21 games. So it'll be something. We'll see. I'm not going to make any sort of predictions. I think a lot of you do overreact quite a bit when it comes to the Cavs. They have some excellent, superb star players. One named Donovan Mitchell, and James Harden is another, and everybody else that's on that team is very good. So don't be too concerned right now. It's still the first part of April. We got a long ways to go. as the season is winding down. How far the Cavs can go, we'll see. I think last year we were all thinking they'd just shoot past everybody, and they did not. Now, standing in their way this year as the number one seed are the Detroit Pistons. You know that I do not care much for JB Bickerstaff. I've talked about JB over the years. I used to write for King James Gospel, part of a fan-sided group, and JB is not a great coach. And I know some of you don't think Kenny Atkinson is much better these days, but he is. He's a better coach, and I'm not worried about the Pistons. I cannot fathom the Pistons getting, even if they got to the Eastern Conference Championship, which I don't know. I don't think they can, but if they do, they're not going to the NBA Finals. They are not. There's no way in God's green earth that I'm going to see a JB Bickerstaff team in a Finals. It's not going to happen. Okay, finally, let's quickly pause for a commercial break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the Brownies. We'll be right back. And we're back here on the Johnny Cleveland podcast. It's a Friday afternoon. Surprise! Thank you again to Lance Reisland, who was my guest the other night on our show. Lance does everything under the sun when it comes to Cleveland sports. He's on part of 92.3. He writes for Cleveland.com. He was a former high school coach. His father was a great coach as well there at Garfield Heights. It was nice to have Lance on and talking about a lot of these upcoming draft prospects, potentially what the Browns are looking at. I just wrote an article recently. It'll be coming out on Dog Pound Daily about some college prospects that we might not be looking at as much, especially for that number 24 pick at the latter part of the draft. Now, I don't think I think the Browns are not going to sit at 6 and 24. I think they're going to go push back. I think they're going to let somebody trade up, and they're going to fall back, and they're going to take the best deal. I think that's what Andrew Berry's going to do, despite there being, like Lance said, he's got 6 guys on his list, and you can probably name a few of them. One of them includes Caleb Downs. The other one is Jeremiah Love. We had an interesting conversation about that as well, the running back from Notre Dame. I know we have running backs in Quinshon Judkins, but I know we took 2 last year, but if Jeremiah Love is there, he makes a good case. You just take the best player. He's going to make your team better. And if he's better than Quinshon Judkins, so be it. But Jeremiah Love, you can use him in a lot of different ways. Personally, I've said this time and time again. I think Caleb Downs is the guy. I think the Browns I think they'd be dumb to move out of that spot at this point. Now, I know what happened last year. I know they moved out of the number 3 spot, but they got a really good player in Mason Graham. There's a little bit of a difference this year, I feel, because I think you only have 5 or 6 really good, talented players that can make a difference. Last year, I think the Browns knew that they could trade out of that number 3 pick, and they still got Mason Graham, which is probably one of the better players at the time. So the fact that they're at 6, that you're right there on the border, and so I just don't like them pushing out of it, even though I just said I think they're going to push out of it because that's what the Browns like to do. They don't like to do what everybody else does. And they've got caught a lot of slack for years about that. And I know that even recently on 850 this week, they talked about the Browns always thinking that they're smarter than everybody else. I've talked about that as well. So we'll see. At the number 24 spot there's a lot of conversation around, the Browns take a defensive lineman. I think it's assumed that they would be looking at maybe a defensive lineman if they don't take somebody at 6 that's on the offensive lineman, I should say, not defense, offensive lineman. And there's lots of good offensive linemen in this draft. So people are assuming, well, gosh, the Browns are going to do that at 24. Maybe not. I don't think anybody had Carson Schwessinger on their bingo card last year as a Brown entering the beginning of the second round last year. So who do the Browns pick to that latter pick if they hold on to that 24th pick? So I talked about it in this article I wrote for Dog Pound Daily. You can check that out. I don't think it's been released yet. It might be tomorrow. But one of the players on that list is actually a defensive edge, a defensive end, and he's from a Big Ten school, and he's good. And I know we have Myles Garrett. I know that we have Alex Wright. I know we have Isaiah McGuire. I know the Browns' defensive end situation is pretty strong, but we also lost what the kid's name? Nick Epinosa, the kid from Buffalo. We thought we got in free agency, but he failed his physical. So we'll see what happens. But there are some other possibilities. I talked about an edge. I also talked about another safety. And I know I've mentioned Caleb Downs, which I would love, but there's some other really good safeties. And there's one who's pretty local to Ohio. So you might check that article out when it comes to be. So the Browns also have 7 draft picks after they have 9 total. So what the Browns do after that first round, or what do they do with their first round picks? Do they package them for more picks later in the draft? We'll just have to find out. But we got 3 weeks to talk about this. Now, one of the things that is, we talked about this last night on the Fanatical Elves Network with Steve and Sam. Good show. Check that out. The conversation came up yesterday. I mean, gosh, people are just the most annoying part to me, and I know everyone's doing this because they need viewership, they need clicks, and I know the radio stations need it. The Mary Kay and the guys at 92.3, the guys at 850. I mean, there's certain people out there that are constantly just putting out crap, and we know it's crap, but we get suckered in because we're Browns fans. And Mary Kay is one of those beat writers who's been there forever, and I know that she's well respected. I talked to Lance works with Mary Kay, and I don't know Mary Kay personally, so I tread lightly. But this, what she said about Tyler Simpson yesterday was absolute garbage. She had that take, and I explained this on our show last night with Steve and Sam. Her take was that we take Tyler Simpson because we could have taken the kid Malik Willis back in the day, who ended up going to Tennessee. Like, Malik Willis is crap. He's done nothing. Yes, he signed a ginormous contract because some other team is stupid enough to sign him to be a starting quarterback. But to try to say, oh, we should take Tyler Simpson, and her other logic was, well, we want to take him at 24. Why not take him at 6? What? That's just dumb. Dumb takes. And these are supposed to be respected, beat writers that have been in the game for a long time. And we, as Browns fans and people that follow and people that do podcasts, we just, it's just dumb. It's dumb takes, and it's just annoying is what it is at this point. It's silly season. We talk about it all the time. This is just a crazy period where we got 3 weeks before the season, before the draft starts, and people are just being absolutely ridiculous. The other ridiculous take that I heard this morning, and thank you, Ken Carman. Ken Carman, you're probably one of the more logical, most understanding of the Browns fan base than anybody on the planet. I think most Browns fans would acknowledge that if you listen to Ken Carman on a regular basis on 92.3. Basically, his partner in crime, Anthony Lima, just made a stupid comment about somebody on social media who made some comment who was supporting Shedeur Sanders. And in his support of Shedeur Sanders, this person talked about how people weren't nitpicking at somebody like Fernando Mendoza, who's going to be the number 1 quarterback, because he is patting the football when he goes back from the line of scrimmage. And noting that last year, a lot of people criticized, especially after the draft, leading up to the draft and then even after the draft, about how Shedeur would do a lot of that. And somehow that managed to make him like a 5th round draft pick, which is absolutely absurd because nobody had him going in the 5th round. So that was spiraling out of control a year ago because of people just having a beef with the Sander family. So this morning, Ken Carman countered Anthony Lima. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. On this, criticizing him, Lima, criticizing this person on social media for critiquing those of you out there that have been critiquing Shedeur Sanders. And it is really kind of a double standard because the ridiculousness of what happened a year ago and even today. Some people want to claim, and there are. I will say this: there are people out there that are absolutely absurdly over the top. About Shador. I love the kid. I think Shador is going to be a great quarterback in this league. I hope he stays with the Cleveland Browns. But I know there's some people that are completely outrageous. But in this case, in this situation where this person is basically critiquing others that are not saying anything about the fact that Fernando Mendoza is tapping the ball or whatever he was doing, it's just it's interesting because these high profile people out there that are on the radio 92.3, when you're starting to critique other people that are on social media, you shouldn't do that, right? I mean, they're just pointing out something that is kind of a double standard, and it's pretty obvious if people want to be honest with themselves. But that's part of the issue here is a lot of people don't like to be honest with themselves, and that's where we're at. So I hope Shador wins the job outright from Deshaun. And I know I think Steve Gill, my colleague last night, made a good observation about Jimmy Haslam's comments about Deshaun getting getting a fresh start. Not necessarily meaning that he's going to grab hold of it. Obviously, there's a bazillion reasons why, including a plethora of injuries that we've talked about endlessly with Deshaun. Deshaun hasn't had a good season since dating back to 2020. And, hearing some of the other things that you hear out there in the wind about Deshaun, I just don't think he's good enough or smart enough to win the job again. But I think the Browns, Monken's going to give him that opportunity. Great, he's a 6-year-old guy. Forgot when to get his hair cut. He's a fiery football guy supposedly. So hopefully he'll get the most out of Deshaun. I don't like the fact that Monken. I think it's absurd that some of you guys are excusing this idea too. Like, well, why does Monken need to look at film? He's going to give him a fresh start. Well, yeah, I don't know, any good football coach is going to look at film. And I don't care if film was from 5 or 6 years ago. I think you need to look at film. Um, you excusing that, those of you out there all the time about, well, why should he look at film? I mean, that's just ridiculous. You're a coach. Part of your employment, part of being a coach is that you understand the game, you understand your players, and you're doing a disservice when Monken is saying, well, I'm not watching film of when Deshaun had a horrible game in week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys. Why not? Why not? Why aren't you looking at it? Why aren't you watching that film? You need to analyze these players and see what they're good at and what they're not good at. The excuse is, well, that they were running a different system or they had different coaches. Well, who gives a flying hoo-ha? You need to pay attention to that. That's what coaches are being paid to. That's why you're paying big bucks to Todd Monken now to be the Cleveland Browns coach. He needs to understand his players, and he needs to understand all the different parts to that. So I think it's ridiculous that Todd Monken is at least he's saying that he's not watching some film of this or that. I think it's absolutely just a bad decision on his part. I hope it doesn't bite him in the butt later on, but we'll see. He's a fiery guy. He's going to probably let everybody know how he's feeling, and we'll probably get a little bit more of that than we used to get with Kevin Stefanski. All right, folks. I hope you have a very good rest of your Friday. Go Guardians on this home opener. Have a great Easter weekend, everybody. I hope everybody has a great time with family and friends. Enjoy the sunshine out there. It's a beautiful day here in the Buckeye State, so take advantage of that. Get outside. Enjoy the fresh air. Everybody take care. Go Browns. And remember, too, that's right, keep smiling.